Ladies and gentlemen, if you can please take your seats, the session is about to start. Would ask you please make note of your nearest emergency exit and switch your phones to silent. Thank you.
Well, welcome. We appreciate you being here this afternoon for the session on processed potatoes. I'm Nora Olson from the University of Idaho. I'm also a director for the World Potato Congress. So it does give me great pleasure to be here to moderate this session today. So our first speaker is Philippe Wallace. He is the co-CEO of Agristo in Belgium. They make French fries. And I love that the title of his talk is Dreamers Who Do. Focus on sustainable potato processing industry. So I think most of us who like to eat a lot of potatoes dream about a lot of potatoes, and especially a processed product. So I invite up Philippe. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Happy to be here. After 3 days, I can imagine that most of the brains are full. If you want to take a nap, go ahead, I'm not bothered. But if you still have some place left in the brain, I would like to put some message into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we consider European potato processing industry, or how we look to it as Agristo. What is sustainability? Very often, I think in the last 3 days, the word sustainability has been used probably way too frequently. So more specific, I would like to have it on climate change, but more specific on carbon footprint. The latest IPCC report from the UN has stated that we have a target of maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius. That is our target. Of course, when we talk about those things, people talk about tons, gigatons, million tons, billion tons, whatever, and nobody really knows what does it mean to us. But just to give you a comparison, the European processing industry is estimated to emit as much carbon dioxide as the whole of Ireland in 1 year. So 10 years' time of European processing industry is the same as the whole of Ireland in 1 year's time. So we are relevant, and we have to do something with that. So I'm going to talk about two things, more specifically carbon footprint and water, because sustainability has a lot of aspects, but we will focus on carbon footprint and water. When we look to our own company, and we would assume that is quite representative for the rest of the industry, we consider scope 1, 2, and 3 when we calculate carbon footprint, which means the total potato chain, what we do in production. Mainly we are talking about resources, like for example energy, oil. We have residual flows like peelings, potato peelings, all these type of things, and we have transport. 22% on potatoes, 22% on transport, 32% on resources and residual flows, just to show the total scope of the chain. So first have a look to potatoes, which accounts for 22% of our carbon footprint. First, the importance of scale. I think it also has been mentioned already multiple times. It's all about the yield. Higher yields will make the carbon footprint much lower. Why? We try with the same amount of resources, we try to increase the yield. As such, we can limit the carbon footprint of every ton or every kilo of finished product. And it doesn't have to say that European industry, in terms of scale, is having that lever. The second item, sometimes in a discussion, we need some common sense. I think we've seen we can grow potatoes everywhere in the world. But when we purely talk about carbon footprint, we should ask ourselves the questions also, what is really the right place to grow potatoes? So if we look in Europe, for example, it is probably one of the only places in the world where with very few irrigation or with almost no irrigation, we are able to grow potatoes. The question is, will it remain like that in the future? Probably not, but the drought and the water, I'm convinced that we will find other solutions than purely irrigation. And it's the same with coffee. Why don't we grow coffee in Belgium or in Ireland? Well, it's the same for the same reason that we don't grow potatoes everywhere in the world. But very often on potatoes, people are having the question, yeah, why do we send frozen French fries to the other side of the world or to the Middle East? Why are not we growing that in that area? Well, it's the same for coffee or for bananas. But we need some ambition. I think if we look to Europe, very often we consider the politicians as only being very annoying. But at some point, they set the ambition. And sometimes I would believe rightfully, because if we don't put the ambition ourselves, other people will put it for us. So if we look, for example, to the Green Deal, reducing pesticides with 50%, today it seems impossible. I recall the thing what we had on CIPC. In Europe, the ban on CIPC, there was a huge amount of dramatic scenarios, but here we are 1 or 2 years later, we've managed to do it. So we can be ambitious in Europe in finding new ways of making a sustainable crop. And we should, because what we have here, and the BPC has shown it, is the huge amount of knowledge we have. But very often already in the multiple keynotes we've seen there are that many innovations, but when we really go through it, a lot of the innovations, we are not yet using them at the full amount. So we have the knowledge in Europe to be a front runner in innovation for a more sustainable crop, more specific, a crop with less carbon footprint. Because I remember the presentation from HZPC on the genetical gain, which we still see possible with potatoes. Well, that is a very strong topic. So after potatoes, we come to energy. Just to give you an impression, the European industry uses as much energy as the more than 500,000 households in the whole of Dublin. So also in energy, we are quite significant, and it gives us opportunities. But when we look to energy, the last years we have been very much focusing on efficiency. How can we, with less energy, make the same amount of output? And to be honest, in that spot, we've done a great amount of progress. But probably we are coming closer to the ceiling. Where we should more work on is energy recovery. And if we think about energy recovery, we have to change the way we think. So I would like to make just a short notice on ecosystem thinking. Sometimes we have to, what it means is that sometimes we have to connect dots which at first instance don't seem to have anything to do with each other, just to make it a little bit more clear. There has been a very nice project from a vegetable company in Belgium which is using the purified water to irrigate the land. Just a very simple example, but there are more examples. A swimming pool. What does a swimming pool have to do with a French fry factory? At first sight, nothing. But we have a lot of residual warmth. Like a lot of factories, we have a lot of residual warmth. We would almost call it waste warmth, but it isn't. It is warmth which can be used for another purpose. So we are looking into heat nets to heat households, to heat swimming pools. At Agristo, our biggest site is located in an area where we have quite a significant chipboard industry, which is like wooden panels. From out of those wooden panels, they have non-recyclable wood. So they've put up a biomass plant. The biomass plant is generating the electricity for the chipboard industry, and there is a direct steam pipe to our French fry factory to make French fries. That means that in that factory, we use less than 10% of natural gas, where the normal circumstance would be 100%. So these are examples of we should not always look for the solution inside our walls, but we have to broaden the scope. We have to look to other industries. We have to look to industries which are close by. And then we come to transport, the third topic. On transport, also there, we need some common sense. This is a small map of the world, and what we immediately see is that quite a lot of the big cities are located very near to ports. And to give you an idea, 1 kilometer of road transport emits the same CO2 as 7 kilometers on a sea vessel, which means that what at first sight seems to be very unsustainable, exporting products from the one region to the other, again, it's the same, what is sustainability? If you would look at purely out of carbon footprint, in transport, we should take into account the 1 kilometer on the 7 kilometer. And the question is, what will happen in the future? Because today, it's a 1 kilometer versus a 7 kilometer on a sea vessel. But the question is, where will we have the first green energy transport route? Will it first be a sea vessel, or will it first be a full road network? If it's a sea vessel, then a 1 on 7 becomes a 1 on 10 or a 1 on 20. So in that sense, distance is not something which can be considered as not sustainable. In contrary, the farther the distance, it could be that it becomes more sustainable. It all depends on the type of the transport. Fourth point, we come to the residual waste, or so-called. Today already, in our factories, we have as good as no waste. Nothing is left. I think that is a very big step forward, or a very big change in comparison to, for example, a lot of fresh production. But we need more ambition. Today we still have a lot of residual flows which go into animal feed. But also this morning it was shown there is enough knowledge to bring products which today are meant for animal feed into the human consumption chain. Plant-based food, a huge challenge. Today we do not have enough ingredients to follow the food-based or the plant-based flow. So with the knowledge, we should use our residual flows into, for example, plant-based products. Concrete, what is that? What does it have to do with our industry? It's solution thinking. In Ghent, for example, the first industrial project is being built to take out CO2 out of a biomass plant to make bricks out of it. So we go from CO2 as being a huge problem into now a project together with the University of Ghent in making bricks out of CO2. The same here, Cedric Porter already mentioned, steam peelings can be used in terms of plastics. So also there, a lot of solutions are possible. So when we bring all those things together, the ideal processing factory, we see it like huge green fields, and then in the middle there is a very nice factory. That's how we always have seen it. But maybe the factory of the future is a factory which is very close to a school which is heated, is very close to a brick factory. Maybe it is very close to a biomass plant, because it's exactly in that ecosystem of different companies where you can find the most optimum solution. And that is really where we have to work to. The solution is not inside our walls, but is outside our walls. And one point which is never taken up in carbon footprint, it's water. And water is also very important in our sector. And it's about, more specific, it's about drinking water. Today we use a huge amount of drinking water. And we know that water is scarce. We know that we will have to change these things. Also here at Agristo, our biggest production plant today is using all the water out of surface water. So no water anymore out of bore wells, because we all know that the water out of bore wells will become a problem in the future. So again here, there is enough knowledge to think differently. We are not that far anymore from coming to zero discharge sites, which means fully recircular water. The knowledge is there. We just need the investments to put it. And again here, connect. In our Dutch factory, we have connected with 4 other companies which have nothing to do with our industry. It's a company like Coca-Cola, it's a company like IFF. And together, if we put our wastewater together, we can make a much more efficient flow. So working together, connecting companies which at first sight have nothing to do with each other. So in fact, if we wrap everything up, we need some common sense. When we talk about sustainability, we should make it much more clear, what are we talking about? Are we talking about carbon footprint? Are we talking about social environment? Are we talking about water? What are we talking about? But if we talk about carbon footprint, the Western European or the European industry today is a front runner and is necessary to bring the carbon footprint to the lowest level. We have the knowledge here. We have the universities, we have the companies, we have everything in place, the knowledge is there. But we have to connect people. And scale, which is very often being considered as something as being one-on-one the same with unsustainability, it's just the opposite. The scale is the catalyst to drive the innovation to become a more independent or a climate neutral industry. And we also need some ambition, because if we won't set the ambition ourselves, people will set the ambition for us. So yeah, if we can dream it, we can do it, and the only point is we should just do it, because we are a big industry, and the responsibility, it brings a responsibility with us. So it's not only the responsibility that we as Gristo have to take, and that we are taking, but it's a responsibility which the bigger players have to take in the total value chain. Okay, thank you.
We do have time for a question. I guess I have a question for you, Philippe, before you leave then. Okay. What was one of the greatest challenges you had in terms of moving forward on initiating a strong sustainability program?
I think the biggest challenge is inside our organizations, because we are constantly thinking about all our problems, I should call it, from today, or sometimes we say the shit of yesterday, and we do not necessarily have the time or have the ambition to always think forward. And these type of projects ask a lot of time and investment, because you have to connect with people which normally you would not connect with. It is not within our current circle of influence. So yeah, we have to step out of our comfort zone. We have to think out of the box, and very often the day-to-day operation takes over. Takes over the priority. Okay.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Oh, we have a question from Cedric.
Do you think that processes will actually be investing in other businesses like energy, other non-processing businesses, as part of their business plan? Do you foresee that?
Yeah. No, personally, I don't foresee that, because I think it has always been our idea that everybody has to do where he's good at. The farmer is best in farming. We are best in processing. I would think a brick factory is best in making bricks. So it's better to cooperate, because it's way too capital intensive also to try to do all these things. So it's in cooperation, not in trying to do it ourselves.
Well, very good. If there's no other questions, thank you, Philippe. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure of mine to introduce our next speaker, a good friend and colleague of mine from the state of Idaho in the United States, Brett Nedrow. Brett Nedrow has been with the J.R. Simplot Company for many years now, and he's currently the Director of Raw Procurement, overseeing Simplot's food group, potato operations, raw development, and sustainability for the Simplot Food Group. I would also say that Brett is a director for the World Potato Congress as well. So we'd like to welcome Brett. He's going to talk about the production and marketing of frozen French fries in North America. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. Thank you, Nora. Well, you know, that introduction was fantastic, because now she just cut like 5 minutes out of my presentation. So that's easy. So, Greg, can you hear me in the back of the room? Because I can hear myself. Okay. Anyway, thank you. You know, it's my privilege and my honor to be here presenting at such fine delegates at the 11th meeting of the World Potato Congress. And you know what? It's absolutely fantastic to do it in person. finally, after a couple years, it's been a rough 2 years. So I mean, this is what these things are for, and I very value it and have enjoyed the interaction and continue to do so. So it's great to see you guys in person. A lot of new people, but there's some extremely familiar faces out there. So it's great to see. As Nora introduced, I'm Brett Nedrow. I'm a director of global raw procurement for the J.R. Simplot company. I was born and raised on a seed potato farm in Idaho. That's where you could just say that I've got potato juice going through my veins and not blood, and that's probably actually true. But little old potato guy went up to a little university up in northern Idaho called the University of Idaho, and I got my bachelor's degree. And while I was doing that, I happened to have the fortunate to be introduced to this gentleman, Joe Gunther. How many people in the room know Joe? At least half. Anyway, so I did my master's with him. Phenomenal gentleman, and I learned a lot from him. And 25 years later, I find myself on the stage talking to you. 22 of those years have been with the J.R. Simplot company. And like Nora talked about, I'm in charge, what do I do? I get asked that a lot of times, and I'm like, well, not a whole lot, but I can sum up in 5 points. Supply chain strategy, grower contract negotiations, raw and variety development, and potato sustainability. Coincidentally, all topics that are probably just been main points at these meetings. So it's been very valuable for me. Anyway, so like Nora said, I'm here to talk about the production and marketing of frozen fries in North America. So there are probably people out in the audience much more smarter than I am in there about talking about this, Cedric, and that's probably you. So he'll correct me if I say something wrong. Anyway, when you look at the potato sector in North America, you got 5 key components there. The first one being, our good old seed potatoes, near and dear to my heart. I grew up on a seed potato farm. Then we got the power of the potato. Is Blair in here? He said he was going to come in here and mock me, but oh, well, that's okay. Anyway, the power of potato, we heard about how it is a very powerful vegetable, and so, the cartoon represents that. Then you got the dehy market up there. And then we got the potato chips. Good old potato chips. We love those comfort foods. And then something that's also near and dear to my heart is the frozen French fries, sector. So I'm going to talk about that, and I actually get a little bit of a royalty fee every time that I tell them that that's my favorite. So anyway, the rest of my presentation is going to be focused on the frozen sector. Okay, so in North America, again, we're about 1.3, just a little over 1.3 million acres in North America, Canada and the U.S. And I apologize, these are all in acres, but it's about 532,000 hectares total. The rest will be in acres. You can divide it by 2.5 and you get close enough. Okay, so where are potatoes grown? Philippe talked about potatoes can be grown anywhere in the world, right? They can be grown anywhere in North America, but where are the key areas? Well, first you've got the East Coast, the Maritime provinces. That's about 194,000 acres there. That represents about 15% of that 1.3 million. Then we go a little further west, we go over the upper Midwest there, as I call it, Halverson town. That's where they're at, Black Gold is. So got the Midwest, about 20%, a little bit more in there, 263 acres. Then you go to the big dog over in the Pacific Northwest, where you're sitting is just over 500,000 acres annually on that. That's about 44% of that resides in that Pacific Northwest area, Alberta, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. And of that, so all those are just over 1 million acres. That's just about 80% of all North America potatoes are in those regions. Okay, so where's all the processing at? Anybody? Well, coincidentally, it just follows the same pattern. You've got processing over on the east side, we've got it in the center of North America, and then again in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, so that's where they're at. Well, now let's talk about the concentration of it. So when you look at it, we got processing all across there. And again, it follows the major growing areas, right? Well, you start over in the big dog in the Pacific Northwest. You got 18 factories over there, frozen French fry factories there. You got 7 in the Midwest, and you got 7 on the East Coast. The North American market is predominantly, it's a smaller player market. It's got a few companies in there. So someone like Lamb Weston has 11 factories, highly concentrated in the Pacific Northwest and just a little presence in the Midwest. You move to the J.R. Simplot company, who I work for, we're a little more diversified, but we've got 2 factories sitting over in the Midwest, and then we've got 3 over in the Pacific Northwest. You've got McCain, more evenly spread across the U.S. with 10 factories, and so they've got an East Coast, Central, and then a Pacific Northwest presence as well. And Cavendish at 4 factories are spread pretty similar to that in the sense that they've got two on Prince Edward Island, 1 in North Dakota, and then 1 over in Alberta. Excuse me, lost my train of thought for a second. And then, so you got those 4 big companies, and then you've got 3 independent ones that have a single factory. There's 2 over on the east, and then Kraft Heinz has the one over in Oregon next to the Idaho border. Okay, so shifting away from growing potatoes, how about, and processing them, how about the marketing of it? Well, when you look at the North America market, it is a 12 billion pound a year product. Can anybody visualize what 12 billion pounds of French fries look like? I can't. How many potatoes do you think it takes to make that? Eric? No, you're close. It depends. It's product mix, recoveries, and all of that one. But it's over 20 billion pounds of potatoes to get that 12 million out of there on that. So that's a lot. Can you visualize what 20 billion pounds of potatoes would look like? That's a lot. You got 3 main marketing sectors in there. You've got a smaller one, the retail one. And when I mean the retail, that's the one you go to the grocery stores and you get the frozen ones, and you take them home and you prepare them for the kids and the family and the friends that come over, right? And then you're split up between 2. There's the food service market, and one aspect is the QSR. And for those of you who don't know, when I talk about the QSR, that's the McDonald's of the world, the Wendy's of the world, the Burger Kings of the world, the Jack in the Box, those type of restaurants. And then the other one is food service. Those are going to be your food service distributors. Like in North America, one of the largest ones is Sysco US Foods. They're the one that are supplying the product to the local independent stores. Okay, so I'm going to narrow it down and focus it on the US market primarily because that's really the one that drives a lot of that one. Of that 12 billion, there are 10.5 billion pounds of that one. So it's really a close approximation of what happens in North America when you look at that big of volume. And again, when you look at that one, US is a little bit less at a smaller retail footprint and a larger food service on that. So you're about 86% of that 10.5 billion is food service, and then 14 is retail. Okay, well, you look at it, so let's talk about the food service. There's 2 components. There's a commercial and a non-commercial. So, well, what the heck is commercial versus non-commercial? Right? Okay, very simple. I had the marketing people explain to me. Commercial are the ones that's their primary business is food. It's the restaurants, okay? When you talk about non-commercial, those are the businesses that food is not their primary business. So a classic example, but food is a necessity of them doing business. Classic example is our conference, right? We're being served food, but that's not the primary purpose, right? It's assisted living centers, it's universities, it's conferences. That's the non-commercial aspect. Okay, no presentation in the recent history and the future and at this conference probably can't go without talking about COVID, right? Has anybody sat into a conference that probably hasn't mentioned it? Very few. But anyway, so here's my gratuitous pandemic slide. So what happened? 2019 came along, we were doing really good. That food service market was just its teasing that 9 billion pounds. And then pandemic, lockdowns. Cedric, right? I read your report faithfully every week, and thank you for that. That's good information. That market just dove down. It's like overnight when that happened, we've lost 11% of that almost 9 billion pounds. Good news, it's now shot back up. So we're coming out of it. And so we're seeing a gain. We're well above what we were before in 19. So that's good. But why? One of the big things is that a lot of the big driver, again, is the QSR market has shifted, and they've simplified their menus. And I'll use McDonald's as an example. You used to be able to get apple dippers and Southwest chicken salads and all these other options, right? Well, because of either supply chain issues or availability of product, they simplified it. So what that did is more people now are getting more French fries. It's increased the movement of French fries. That's been some of it, and I think that's going to stay for a while. I think the businesses are seeing that it's bringing profitability increasing versus some of those options. Uber Eats and DoorDash has driven a lot of that one. So, we were all locked down, but you know what? The drive-thrus, the DoorDash, the Uber Eats, always busy. I couldn't go to a McDonald's that there wasn't the double lines in North America were full. Okay, promise, Nora, I got 2 slides left. Okay, so let's talk about, so we talked about the dip and the recovery. Menu penetration. Basically, this slide is just telling you how fries are showing up on the menu. So previously, we've kind of been flat. We had a little dip in 13 and 14. Anybody know maybe what happened there? Any marketers in the room? It was basically at that period of time, you saw growth of fast casual restaurants, and they didn't use a lot of French fries, processed French fries. So Five Guys is a back of the house fresh cut, right? So they didn't bring anything in, but that grew. Chipotle's is growing. There's no fries at Chipotle's. So those kind of restaurants drove that menu down, but we bounced back up. So this, and now what we're seeing through the pandemic and out of it is that this tells you that French fries are showing up on menus more. There's more fries showing up on the menus in there. And everything that's pointing is that we gained about a 1.6 points over time past the flat curve, and now we're expecting about 3.3 growth over 2 years, over the next 4 years, sorry. Incredible, that's good. People are really finding out that they still like French fries. They love French fries. Okay, last slide. French fry importance. Okay, so I had to have someone walk me through this. Exactly what does this mean? At the end of the day, when you look at it, it was flat, 17, 18, 19, 20 in there. Focus on the blue, the little yellow sweet potatoes. And we're not going to talk about those. But then you look at 21, it came up, and 22, it came up. What that does is it is showing that French fries are moving in restaurants faster than the traffic. So people are coming back, but they're ordering more fries than there are people coming through. Does that make sense? So it's growing, the incidence of sales and everything of the French fries are going at a faster rate than the traffic's coming in. That's good. That's growth. So that's good. So, so North America's looking really good. It's strong. I think there's potatoes. We love them. They're a staple. They're a good food. I think when it comes to the fast food, it's all about a balanced diet, right? Don't eat it every day, but it can be part of our lifestyle. And I think it's going to stay that way. And again, thank you very much for the presentation, and I'm just under a minute left. Have any questions?
Any questions from Brett, for Brett?
Cedric, I'm going to be disappointed.
Do you think any recession or cost of living crisis, is that going to affect the out of home demand in the next year or two?
That is an excellent question, and I'm going to go back. We've looked at that one, and I think we go back to the last recession we had in North America, and let's say that's what 7, 8, right around there, okay? And we saw things, recession come in, and we were worried at that time that says, okay, it's going to slow things down. It really didn't. When you looked back, and as an economist, you always kind of like to look back, analyze it, and you tell people why it happened, and you can never predict why, in the future, blah, blah, blah. But I can say that because I'm an economist. But it's the demand stayed there. I think they just shifted. So instead of going out to Ruth Chris Steakhouse on the high levels, which you can still get French fries there, right? They went to an Applebee's or something like that. People are still going to go out. They're still going to eat. So is there going to be a little bit of an impact? Possibly, but I don't expect a whole lot. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brett? Well, if not, let's go ahead and thank Brett for the presentation. Excellent. Our next speaker is Jarek Venkovich. He is from Farm Fritz, Poland, and he started working at Farm Fritz, Poland in 2001 as an agronomist. And then since 2018, he is the Raw Material Supply Chain Director. And he's going to talk about the process management and IT solutions in sustainable raw material procurement. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank organizers for inviting me and letting me share with you our experience in introduction of the process management in company, and I will try to show you how we did it, what we did it, and what were the bottlenecks, and where it can go wrong or it can go correctly. Before I start with the real presentation, few words about the company where I work for. As Nora already mentioned, I work for FarmFleet Poland. FarmFleet Poland is a company operating almost for 30 years. We started the business in 1994. At the moment, we process around 260,000 tons of the potatoes on a yearly basis. They are processed on 3 processing lines. The main one is French fries line, roughly 100,000 tons of the fries on a yearly basis. We are processing also flakes, potato flakes, roughly 11,000 tons on a yearly basis, and we are producing also potato pancakes, roughly 3,000 tons, and now we are just starting up a new line, which will allow us to produce around 7,000 to 8,000 tons on a yearly basis. We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like most of the processors. What is maybe quite an interesting thing is that we have 2 shareholders, Farm Fritz International and Avico, which in fact they are competitors on a market. The presentation, what I would like to show you today, or what I would like to share with you today, is I want to show you how we did change the approach to managing the company. We heard today, heard a lot of things, a lot of latest technology, a lot of breeding possibilities, a lot of solutions. But in the end of the day, if there is no proper management systems, and your team is not able to run it correctly, then you have anyhow the problem. So I don't want to say that is a wonderful solution, but that is something what we went through, and we find it very useful, very fitting to the situation, to the place where we work and the way how we work. So I will talk about the process management instead, how we have introduced the process management instead of traditional department approach. And the second second issue what I like to touch today, very simple, very shortly, is tailor-made management tools, how we developed in the meantime to support the introduction of the process management and visualizing the total process. And of course, I will try to touch also what was the impact of the both on the total supply of the potatoes and how it can make it more sustainable. Basically, if we talk about processes, process management, then you have to turn your whole structure into processes. And every process has to have several things which must be defined and must be described. First of all is goal. If you have a goal of a process, every process has a goal. And imagine in my field, if there is a goal is to deliver potato, is something else than deliver potato in a reasonable price. Deliver potatoes of a certain quality. So defining the goals of the every process, it's a good start. It is very important. Because if we do it correctly, then also the frame of the process is known. It's easier to make all next steps. Of course, then you go deeper, a little bit deeper, then every process has to have own structure, has to be well described, how the process works on itself, how it interacts with the different processes, and so on, so on, so on. A very important thing is that every process has its scope. It has the beginning and has the end. And it is one of the most difficult parts if you try to define it. If it's done correctly, in fact, then there are no gray areas between the processes. And if that is done correctly, then everything is covered. There is everything what has to be done in a company will find a place in one of the processes. In the end of the day, every process produces something, so there is a so-called process product, and that means what we have to deliver. Every process has an owner. Ownership of the processes is independent from the official structure of the company. It doesn't mean that we do not have a structure, departments in a company, but it is independent. In fact, in a longer run, it is very likely that we can also turn the normal official structure into the process structure. The tricky part is that sometimes the owner works in a different department than is doing the job in the processes. The tricky part is that if you participate in a process, sometimes you are the owner of the process, and sometimes you are just participating in the process. So that is a little bit difficult in the beginning to get used to it, but I can tell you it works. And of course, in the end of the day, if the processes are described and so on, then you also know to whom you deliver the information and what will be done with that. As a last step, what we did, we also describing all the processes when everything that was done. Then we made so-called IT tool map. So we have also mapped all the IT tools what we have. That was in fact the starting point to develop our internal ERP system to manage potatoes. How it works in a practice? If that would be our traditional structure. So what is, let's say, the field of my interest at the moment? We have own farm in Poland. There are 4 departments: where potatoes, seed potatoes, combinable crops, workshop. There is agronomy department who is contracting potatoes with the farmers, advising them how to grow it, how to store it. They are collecting also information about everything what we collect about the potatoes to feed the factory proper way. There is a receiving department which transport all the potatoes, make quality assessment, and so on, so on, so on. The same story is, if you turn it to the processes, it looks the following way. So I will go from a backside. Although there were 3 departments, or there are much more departments on the previous slides, there were even 2 or 3 legal units behind it, because we operate in 3 different companies, that combines everything in one process. I am responsible for that piece of the red part. So going from backside, if you see that from a backside, instead of the receiving department, we have there the process which delivers potatoes. Which delivers potatoes, has to make the quality assessment, has to feed it up to the factory. It's our process, but ends up when the potatoes are sorted, graded, prepared for the production. That's it. So that's my end of my process. If I go backwards, then we have the whole process which is advising farmers, supervising the production there, collects the information about the potatoes. We have a process which provides the seed potatoes to our farmers, our own farm. We have the process which is just a whole farm, our whole farm. There is a structure of the process structure underneath, but from a whole farm. We have process which is, I call it roughly, in a short way, R&D process. So we look for new different varieties, new different way of growing potatoes, assessing quality, and so on and so on. And we have the process, which is an interesting one, the process which is which builds the relation with the farmers. We do not call it contracting potatoes. We call it building relations, because we work on relations with the farmers. We want to build the relations with them, and contracting is only the small part of it. So already the name of the process is also giving a rough thing, how does it look like, or what should we expect it. If we go look at the process approach, then it is called process architecture for a company. So that's roughly on one page, you can see basically how the total company is organized. And I will not go into details because I could talk about that for a couple of hours. But that is roughly speaking that you have, we have the production processes, and then we have supporting processes on the bottom, on the top. So that's how the traditional department silo approach, it can be turned into more effective process approach. And when we have built the processes, then we have learned that we have difficulties to manage some processes. We are missing the tools. We had a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and that didn't work, or that was not updated on time, or people could not access it, and so on. So we started to say we have to develop some platform, some place where we can store all the data and we can well manage it. So we went through the market and we tried to use any standard ERP system. But then standard ERP systems, they were all required a lot of changes, adaptations, or they were not covering everything. So we said, okay, let's do it the own way. Let's try to develop our own system, our own tool. And we have started to develop a system which is called TubeFlow. Today was something also, there was also some similar system there. TubeFlow from TuberFlow, that was supposed to cover the whole process. So what we learned later on, that building the system, or if we need to build a system which allows us to manage potatoes, the business process management very much supported the development of the system. It made it very easier, because it was already all described how we work on it from a process point of view. And the other way around, when we were developing the tools were optimizing the processes. So in fact, what I would like to say today, the only stable thing over here will be continuous change. That will be all the time we will be updating it and improving and so on, because it will never end. So what was our starting point, building up the tools? We said we want to visualize the data. If the meeting is based on a data which everyone can see, that makes life easier. And as you can imagine, or maybe you cannot, but how many different kinds of tonnages can be used in a company, in the speaking terms? Any clue? 5, 6? People from a potato department, they will talk about the gross harvested tons. If somebody has to deliver it, and they will be delivered only in May, there will be shrinkage, storage losses, so that will be already potatoes. We call it potatoes available for a transport. Then they are transported to the factory. Not everything is accepted, so they have gross delivered, gross accepted. And then the potatoes which are accepted in a factory, they have soil, stones, some other things. Then we have to talk about net potatoes, that ones which will go for a line. But if you go to financial department, they do not pay for everything to the farmers. For example, for a green potatoes, it is not payable. So we still have net payable potatoes. So that makes a simple life more complicated. So we said we don't want to have it counted separate on a side. We want to have it everything in the system. System takes care about that. If I want to see the gross harvested potatoes, then I will see the gross harvested potatoes. It has to be net payable potatoes, that is net payable potatoes. That's how we started. And I see 2 minutes still on time. So that way I mentioned already, why we didn't go for a standard ERP system. We didn't go because it was really not covering everything. So I can talk about this system for a whole day. I have only 1 minute, 53 seconds left. So I would make it very roughly. I will show you just a sample of it. The system is built like that it covers the main frame of the main chain of the potato deliveries. We start with the seasonal and weekly planning. Then we go over the daily planning. It is scheduled track by track, line by line, everything. It is visualized. I will show it that as example. Then it goes into transport. Then it goes to the factory gate where we have handling the weight, weighing and quality assessment and so on, so on. Then we have lab, and then we have in the end of the day, we call it the realization of the process. Then we can allocate each track of the potatoes to the certain production order, and then we have full traceability, including quality, finance, and everything. And just to give you a little bit clue how does it look like, we call it P24, 24 hours ahead, plan 24. I will make it bigger to explain it, but the point is that we wanted to visualize everything. So one of the small fragments of the issue, that's how the daily planning looks like. On the top, you see the production lines, 3 production lines I spoke about. There are products which are to be produced, what time it starts, when it ends. The second, I'll make it bigger, a moment. So, production lines. What has to be produced, which product, how much potatoes we have to deliver on our, how much product is to be produced, how much is already produced, and so on, so on. Over here, for our point of view, from a supplying chain, from potato supply chain, which track from which farmer is coming, which variety. Over here in a right top corner, expected quality of the potatoes. We took us a couple of months to visualize the data, quality data, in 4 figures. We call it Q codes, quality codes. First is dry matter, second is color, third is defects, fourth is length of the tubers. And looking at that, if there is black, then I know that the quality was not assessed yet. If it is green or red, it means that if quality was assessed, green is according to the plan, red is different than the plan. Even the bar over here shows you where the truck is standing, whether it's already loaded. That first one is loaded, the farmer has loaded the truck. Second, if this part is full, then it means it is on a yard already. The last one is if it is ready for unloading. So that's the point was to have everything in one place visualized. And quickly, because I'm out of time already, the same visualization, how the sorting and grading takes place, how the potatoes are unloaded, how much you can expect potatoes in time, in which bunker or silo in a factory, which potatoes will be used for which production. So you see the correlation with the colors over here. So we plan to start at this moment to produce that product from those potatoes. That's more or less an idea. That's it for my side. Yeah? If you have any questions, so.
Any questions for Jarek? I guess I'll take one question for you, or have one question for you. What was the one greatest value that you received from having the Tubflow IT program?
What was that?
What would be the one greatest value you feel like you got out of it?
Everyone sees the same data, one single place of truth.
Okay.
So everyone sees the same data at the same moment.
Okay.
And to make it correctly running, then everyone also has to be, every department has to update the data online. And that makes it, in the end of the day, it's not so difficult, but it makes it the powerful tool.
Good, good. Well, great. Well, thank you, Jarek. Oh, wait, one more question. Oh, yes.
We are developing it with the external company, but a lot of our time is, we are involved, ourselves we are involved in it. So it took us 3 years now, and still we are developing next phases.
Well, great. We'll move on now, but thank you. Our last speaker of this session is Emma Kallqvist. She's the acting CEO and CFO for Veg of Lund. Yes, correct. In Sweden. And she'll be talking about the unique potato-based innovations from Sweden. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Okay then, so unique potato-based innovations. So we have something that no one else has, and that is that we have potato milk. I'm just going to see how this works here. So I'm Emma Kallqvist, and I'm acting CEO and CFO. And with me here, I have Graham. He is our sales director for UK and Ireland. And I also have Eva with me, but not in person. She's going to be on a small video that you will meet our crazy but genius professor and the brain behind this. So you probably heard about plant-based drinks, so oat drinks and different nuts and soy. They are all great. However, potato-based, that's the next thing. To hero the beloved potato and make it to a milk that you can use in everyday life. So why potato and why hasn't anyone else done it? It's because it's really hard to work with the potato due to the starch, and that's where Eva's knowledge and stubbornness came into the picture, and she found the solution to how to deal with it. Potato is also very sustainable. It's low in water usage, it's low carbon footprint, and also the land usage compared to, for example, oat. And what people usually don't think about is that potato is packed with vitamins and antioxidants. I mean, you probably all know that, but potato has, in some countries and some categories, a bit of a bad reputation. I don't eat potato because it's packed with carbs. Yes, in a way that's correct, but you're missing the point that it's packed with carbs and it's filling you up way quicker than pasta, for example, but is also really rich in vitamins and antioxidants. And one other thing that is getting more and more important, it's allergen-free. You can eat potato even though you might be allergic to heaps of other things. So here, you're gonna get the crash course in Swedish. It's subtitled for you who doesn't understand Swedish. But here you get to meet Eva.
Jag doktorerar på emulsioner, hur proteiner fungerar för att stabilisera emulsioner. Det är det som är grunden till vad det här företaget, Vegovlund, det är just hur proteiner agerar i olika strukturer. Det är basen. Det är den kunskapen som jag är bäst på, så att säga. Och det är det som kan skapa nya produkter. Det tycker jag är kul nu med det här växtbaserat. Nu får vi möjlighet att riktigt ta fram produkter som vi ändå ska sälja och som man vågar sälja. Dag är en potatisdryck som består av en oljedroppar i en vattenfas. De här oljedropparna, för att de inte ska gå ihop, så täcks de av proteinet som bildar ett membran runt. Sen finns det också stärkelse i. Och sen har vi tillsatt kalcium och vitaminer. Så att det är en hel måltid. Det finns väldigt mycket potatis och det är lätt att odla. Så att på det viset är den väldigt hållbar. Den är ju den 4:e största grödan efter vete, ris och majs. Den kommer alltid finnas, tror jag. Alla tycker någonting om livsmedel och tänker att det är väldigt enkelt. Men det är inte enkelt för det är enormt komplicerade struktur och särskilt proteinstrukturer. Och den utmaningen har jag alltid tyckt var väldigt kul.
Yes. So a bit of the company's history. So it was founded 2016. Eva is one of the co-founders. That's also when she registered for the first patent. So the emulsion between potato and rapeseed oil, that is one of our bases. 2020, we got listed on Nasdaq First North Growth Market in Sweden. So we're a listed company. 2021, that's the year when we launched Doug potato drink, potato milk, more usually how we say it. We also got an award, the World Food Innovation Award, for our potato milk. 2022, that's the year where we are expanding. So we have already expanded into UK and Ireland. So we're now on shelf here in Ireland, happy to say. However, expansion is just started. But We are happy for if any one of you have a country where you feel that this is the country where you're really going to do well. People love potato here and is really ready for a new potato drink. Then let us know. We haven't set which countries we're going to go into. If it's a mature market that is interested in plant-based, we're open for ideas. Also, if you have anyone that feels that this is an interesting way to work with the beloved potato, obviously we are interested in different ways of expanding and investments. So that was a bit of a sales pitch there. If we're moving along, I'm leaving over to you, Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Plant-based has gradually become a hot category in a lot of cultures, especially in the UK and US. It's come from cult origins, really, to mainstream in a relatively short space of time. And our recent experience has shown a real step change in the quality of products available, and that's had a commensurate increase in consumer awareness, consumer interest, and trade interest as well. And that trade interest has been delivered from concerns about health, about sustainability, and about the welfare of the planet, and a growing awareness that diet is a relatively easy way for people to make changes that will make a big difference. And all the forecasts point to this being more than just a fad, and to the trend continuing into the future as the quality and the availability of products increases. Latest industry estimates predict that plant-based milk, which is where we are at the moment, will treble within the next 5 years, which is massive growth. But that in itself is going to be eclipsed by the growth in meat-based alternatives, with most experts agreeing that the likely growth for that in the next 5 years is going to be between 15% and 20%. So plant-based is here to stay, it's growing, people are interested in it, and potato is a real motivator for people. And if we look specifically at why potato milk is actually starting to exploit those growth indicators, it's clear that once the consumer gets past the initial startling realization that they can get potato milk, or milk from a potato, and they dare to try it, the values that the potato combines to, from the potato combine to give them a product that delivers against all their key needs. Other plant-based alternatives, such as almond, oat, soy, they all have some of the properties that match those consumer needs. But it's only the humble potato with our unique globally patented emulsifying process that can deliver against every single requirement or aspiration. And as we've seen, Vägerlund have begun the process of bringing our unique potato-based range of product to the market through the introduction of the Dug Drinks range, which has been supported by our fully engaged and innovative marketing agencies. Once people get it, they really want a part of it. And it's designed to be challenging, it's designed to be disruptive, and it's designed to be memorable. Every variant has a role to play in the various sectors where we're seeing success. The original product is a general substitute for dairy and can be used in every usage occasion that you use cow milk. The Barista obviously has been specifically developed with coffee in mind and to deliver the smoothness and great foaming that you would come to expect without disrupting the carefully crafted flavor of the coffee itself. And unsweetened is outstanding in the preparation of things like bechamel sauces and other savory dishes, and it provides an option for those who become accustomed to a sugar-free or skimmed product. And of course, Dug, our milk alternative, is just the beginning.
Yeah, to add to that, so we have now registered for a patent for ice cream. We have already a patent for smoothie, or as we like to call it, foodie, because since it's based on potato, it's more filling than our normal or traditional smoothie. We are in collaboration with Scandi Standard, that is a chicken producer in Scandinavia, and they have, together with us, research projects. So them coming to us gave us a bit of an industrial recognition, but they came to us and wanted our professor to be the leader of the research project of finding a substitute for chicken meat. So that is what we're doing now. So a potato-based chicken, so to say, but also red meat and in the future potentially a substitute to tuna. I've tasted the meat, and with adding chicken flavor, yeah, you would not know that it's potato-based meat that you're eating. So it's really exciting. The research project is ongoing, so taking it to the next level and not just doing small portion in a lab, but doing it big scales. But that is something that we're working on now. And also cream, cooking cream, creme fraiche, to be able to offer a solution, an allergen-friendly solution for bigger kitchens, for example, school kitchens, etc. So they have one product that they can use instead of several different to meet all the different allergen needs that are the reality of today.
And it is absolutely critical that we take consumers along the journey with us. And in the UK and recently here in Ireland, we've invested in a PR campaign that's been targeted at our key demographics. And in the last 3 months alone, we've seen a total of 76 pieces in various media, which even includes TV, even the Drew Barrymore show in the US. And she liked it, by the way. The total readership or viewership of all of these adds up to something like 1.6 billion people. And we've had hundreds of thousands of interactions with our social media and comments coming in, which is fantastic. Not all positive, but the vast majority intrigued and interested in potato milk, and how it's going to be developed into the future. And the perfect thing for us is much of this PR has been unsolicited, unpaid for. It's not been placed. It's curious journalists, interested consumers, people who want to get involved with Doug, and it's started to take on a little bit of a life of its own. It is, in fact, this week is the anniversary of our first product being shipped into store in Sweden, and it's been an amazing year so far in the UK and in Ireland. We're available in Waitrose, in Ocado, and in the last week has started to be rolled out into super value stores in Ireland. It's just begun its life in health stores with store listings in Holland and Barrett and Whole Foods Market. So it's available for the consumer to find. Our mission now is to get them to be aware of it and to try it. Because when they try it, invariably, they like it. But not only that, food manufacturers have embraced the product as an ingredient. And there's a leading UK retailer that uses it in their vegan lasagna and their vegan curry as for their ready meals, for take-home meals. It's also available branded in the Kirsty's fish pie range that's available in Tesco and Asda. So Doug has arrived as the vanguard of the potato revolution in plant-based foods. So what do we want from you guys? Well, firstly, we want you to dare to Doug, to go out and try it. You've had the chance already today. Then follow our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and even on TikTok. Doug is very easy to track down. Then share the story with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and encourage them to dare to Doug as well. Thank you.
Oh, the humble potato. Okay, so here's the stats. Low in sugar.
Oh, that won't go. Any questions?
Milk has faced a fair amount of backlash from the milk lobby. Do you have any backlash for calling your product milk in Europe?
So on the package it says use as milk. In Europe you're not allowed to say that it's a potato milk, which we don't do officially. But for explaining how to use the product, we use it potato milk. But it's phrased more as a plant-based or potato-based drink.
Any other questions? Oh, Cedric.
Do you ever foresee a time when McDonald's are only going to sell burgers and fries completely made out of potatoes?
Oh yeah, that is something to aim for, right?
I like that thinking, Cedric, for sure. Any other comments or thoughts? Well, obviously, this really just really stresses how versatile the potato is, and so it's amazing that you've taken it this far. So we applaud you for doing that for sure. So we'll thank all the speakers for today's session, and I'm sure some of them will be around. So please find them if you have any additional questions. And thanks for attending today.